Woo! Alright, cool. Where's my clicker? There it is. So yeah, there's a bit of swearing in my talk. Fucking. And but thank you all for coming out tonight. Really appreciate it. I know there was a lot of other events going on, so like Yow and stuff. So if you did come from that, you're probably all really talked out and you just want to drink lots of beer, and that's okay. But this one's actually kind of entertaining. Well, I think it is. Hopefully you guys will too. So anyway, I don't know if you guys have noticed this or not, but there seems to be this trend going around where all these mega cool designers will pick a particular user interface component and then write a talk or blog about why it sucks so much and like why you should never ever use it. In case you weren't aware of this, I put some examples together. So this one's called Fuck Dropdowns. It was done by these two guys, Eric Campbell and Golden Krishna at South by Southwest, I think it was, and they got a website for it, so they put in a lot more effort than me, but yeah, this one's pretty good. Carousels, so I did say this in my talk. Some of you probably think I'm doing a talk on carousels. I'm not, but fuck these two, right? They suck. Yeah, they're always getting a bad rap, and rightfully so, they do. They're pretty bad. You've got password inputs. Fuck them. And if you went to Collide last year, you would have seen Joel do a talk on date formatting. I guess this one isn't really for any particular UI component, but I still think it's in the same vein. So, and I'm not actually mentioning these examples sarcastically either. They are all super insightful, and the presenters are all really, really smart and cool. So cool, in fact, that I was kind of thinking like, man, I need to get onto this. Like, I want to be as cool as these people. So for tonight's talk, I'm going to speak to you guys about my pet hate. And what is my pet hate, you ask? It's sliders. Fuck sliders. I'm sure you're all plenty familiar with what this heinous little element is. But just to make sure we're all on the same page, re terminology, I'm going to break it down. A slider in its most basic form comes in two parts. The first part is this bar thing, which is also known as the track. And the second part is a handle, which is also known as the knob. It's weird. And some other people call it the thumb, which is also like weirder, but you know, whatever floats your boat. And together, the bar creates this bounding space in which the handle can traverse across via user input, a bit like this. Is that playing? Yep. Cool. And wherever the handle ends up represents the end value of the slider. So the most common place you see this is probably on your phones when you change the volume. So moving the slider to the right increases the volume, and moving the slider to the left decreases it. And that seems pretty easy, right? Like, there's nothing else much going on there. It's pretty simple. No! No. I think when you work intimately with any interface for a long period of time, you begin to see the flaws that most don't. And that's definitely the case with me and sliders. The funny thing is, though, that on a surface level, there doesn't seem to be much going on. But if you do study it hard enough, you will find how we interact with them actually represents this really complicated exchange of information. And what's even funnier is that while I was writing this talk, trying to come up with like all these things of why I hate sliders so much, I realized that I actually don't dislike sliders that much. I think the real reason that I'm sick of them is because, in fact, of my inability to make them work for me and how really I'm the one who's been fucking them up. So considering this, instead of going to 150 reasons why sliders are dumb and you should never ever use them, I'm going to tell you guys a story. And that story starts when I was hired at a company called Culture Counts, which was about 3 years ago. And to give you some background, we're basically developing an app that helps cultural organizations collect audience feedback. Now, we have to collect that feedback somehow, so a lot of that is done through surveys, and in each of our surveys, there is a particular type of question which asks the audience how much they agree or disagree with a particular statement. So in this case, it was different from things I've experienced before. How much do you agree? How much do you disagree? And this is what the prototype version looked like when I joined. And as you can see, there's like a little familiar friend right there. And now, like many designers starting at a fresh job, I immediately wanted to redesign everything, and because there wasn't really anyone there to stop me, I kind of just did just that. And this is the first lesson I learned. So don't be a dumbass and redesign everything without doing your research. And I'll tell you why. This is what I came up with, or we came up with as a team to start with, like this. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. We've made a couple of general improvements to the overall layout of the application. We're kind of focusing on getting it delivered by a device instead of on the desktop, because that's where most of our respondents come through. And you've got this nice, really big slider now, and it seems like it would do a really sweet job of collecting some awesome responses. But fast forward a couple of months, and something is up. Yeah, it's data. It's hilarious. It is, and I'll tell you why. This is a snapshot of some of the data we're getting, and I'll see if you can spot what's going on. Each one of the cells here is a question in a survey. Now, if you see those blank cells that are highlighted, that means that people responding to those questions haven't given an answer. So let's look at another survey. Boop. Same blank spots. Boop. Here they are again. Boop. And another one. And this is unusual for a survey, right? Like, if we were looking at real valid data, we would not be seeing this many responses missing. There's just no way that that many responses wouldn't be there, especially in the middle of someone's session. And for whatever reason, all these random questions all through our database were missing answers. And I think this GIF like really sums up the developers' feelings at this point. And we thought there had to be some kind of bug, right? Like, and after a bit of sleuthing, we kind of nailed down that it was only happening on slider questions, which is great because at least we know where the bug is. But do we? Because the thing is, as much as we tried to recreate what was going on, we couldn't. And if we can't recreate the bug, we can't fix it. So unfortunately, our mistake here was thinking that there was some kind of technical issue. It wasn't really until we actually physically studied someone using the interface that we figured out what was going wrong. And I'll show you what was happening, but I'll show it to you in emoji story form. So this is me. I'm an audience member coming out of performance. And I get asked to do one of these surveys. And these guys are like, what do you think of the performance? And shows me a slider to rate the performance on. And I'm like, let me tell you what I think, mate. I'm not quite sure what I thought, though. Like, I guess it was all right, but I'd probably give it around 50%. But hold up. Looks like the handle is already at 50%. So we're good, right? Like, move on, next question. Except it wasn't at 50%. That question has never actually been answered. I love that emoji, it's so good. To answer the question, the user actually has to touch the handle. The slider was in the right position, but instead of touching it, the user just skipped the question, like never logging a response. And you see, I think sliders have this interesting quality in that they always have a value. So there's never a neutral or unregistered state. So for example, let's go back to the volume slider. The volume is always set to something. It could be 0, it could be 100, but it's always something. And I talked before about how sliders are made up of the track and the handle, right? It's really the combination of these elements which make a slider what it is. And unfortunately for us, there is no way to recognize a slider without these two elements. And since the handle of the slider represents its value, it is literally within its nature to already have a value when it gets displayed. And you guys might be like sitting there going, yeah, duh, obviously. But this was a really crazy revelation to us. So moving on, again, we've realized our mistakes, or have we? And we made some more improvements to the UI. The slider has this ghost version that activates when you touch it, and there are some extra UI changes going on. Ooh, that just cut out. Hello, hello. It's all right, I can just shout while they fix it. All right, I'll just keep going. So yeah, the slider has this ghost version, and there's like some extra UI going on to help people understand when the question has been answered. And this is where we get to lesson 2. Just because you had a hard look one time does not mean that you know everything. Because even though we had these improvements, when we looked at the data, something else didn't add up. And you might have noticed before how many of the scores that I showed on the screen earlier were in the 0.6 to 0.8 range. We have this joke in our team that every evaluation we do gets 80%, but it's this really, really sad joke because what we're actually joking about is something called positive bias, or in our case, acquiescence bias. Is that going again? Yeah. Acquiescence bias. So that is the tendency to agree with all the questions to indicate a positive connotation, also known as yes saying. And when we ask people about their experiences, obviously we want them to be as truthfully as possible, answer as truthfully as possible. And if we were to look at a collection of truthful answers, data science tells us that it would probably look a little something like this. And this is the classic bell curve, and it kind of describes what a real distribution of scores should be. And that is grossly oversimplified. And if any of you are into stats, you're probably puking a little bit in your mouth right now, but bear with me. This is what we were starting to see with some of our surveys. So the problem here is that a trend for a large group of respondents to only answer in the 70 to 100 mark. And we know from previous research that scores in these ranges don't actually represent what people think. You're not actually going to be amazed and captivated by every cultural performance that you attend. So there has to be something else that is affecting the way people respond. Now, acquiescence bias can occur for many different reasons. Maybe the question is phrased poorly, maybe the respondent is primed to answer in a particular way, or maybe your input is badly designed. And since we're lucky to have a bunch of shit-hot data scientists and psychology majors, we ended up finding which one it was pretty fast. Hi there. I think without any research, it kind of makes sense that the component like this would be causing some kind of bias, right? And there's just something about them which makes it so easy to swipe right on. Like, oh my God. So let's deconstruct what's going on here. So when we interact with an interface, we are essentially having a conversation with it. And this is especially true with input elements, which rely on you giving explicit feedback to show you exactly what you're changing. So that could be anything from like haptics, which is like a touch response. So when you type stuff on your phone, you get vibrating thing to it. Or it's something visually changing on screen, like a letter appearing or the color changing, whatever. And different kinds of inputs use different kinds of feedback. But for sliders, the primary mechanism of feedback is movement. And that is the movement of you dragging your finger back and forth with a handle on the track. And this is something that the slider is actually really, really good at making you want to do. There's this kind of like affordance for just making you want to drag it all around, like it's way too much fun. And that's what makes the next couple of observations really, really interesting. So the first is that there's a tendency for people who take a survey on a touch-based device to swipe the slider in either direction, so only producing values in the extremes of the range. And you'd often see this in longer forms, so the more questions you're forced to go through, the faster you tend to answer them, especially with the same kind of input, so that affects us a lot. The second observation, which is a little bit more interesting, is what I'm going to call the dead zone. And this one is really crazy. We found that when people were answering questions, there is this zone around the slider, which is about 2 times its size, that people will naturally want to get out of before releasing their finger and mouse. So I've made something to show you what I mean. This is Kanye. And imagine Kanye is the handle for the slider, and right now he's like taunting us because he's in his zone. But as soon as we start dragging him, we just can't help but like subconsciously get him out of his zone. Like we don't want him in his zone. We hate his zone. And even if we want him in his zone, like we still just have to move him out before getting him back in there. Like it's crazy. And translating that to the real thing, that habit means that when we operate a slider, we tend to avoid that small area around where the handle starts off. And the reason this is a problem for us is that it encourages scores outside of that zone, which in many cases results in people leaving only responses in the 65 to like 90 range. And when you're asking people to go rate how much they agree with something, the last thing that you want to happen is for people for options to be inaccessible. So that sucks. The other negative effect of this is that it prompts us to make big movements instead of little ones. So because of that, we're less likely to remember exactly where the handle was before we started to move it. Imagine you've got a temperature gauge and you're changing the handle, changing the slider up and down, and you drag the handle out of the dead zone. Like, what is there to indicate what the original temperature was? Like, the user is forced to estimate the original position of the handle or we have to supplement the slider with additional UI elements to describe that. And the final thing to note is that sliders are inefficient in registering precise values. So NN Group do a really nice analysis of this. They conclude that selecting a precise value using the slider is a difficult task requiring good motor skills, even if the slider is well designed. And that is because sliders are subject to this thing called steering law, which says that the time required to navigate or steer through a tunnel increases as the length and narrowness of the tunnel increases. And it's probably easier if I just show you what that means up here. So basically what this is getting at is that when you change the size of the slider, you are also changing the range of values that are available for someone to select. And that means that the size of the track, as the size of the track increases or decreases, it makes it harder for you to make a precise adjustment. So too small, and you have to be really careful not to nudge the thing really far, and too big, and it's really laborious to move the handle anywhere that's not close to where you are already. But how often do you guys actually think of these kind of details when you design stuff like this? Like, probably not often, right? Like, it's okay, because I'm the same. Usually like to quick look at what other people are doing, and then a yeah, good enough little self-affirmated pat on the back. And this kind of trap, this is a trap that we fall into a lot when designing components such as these. We see a simple kind of input, and we expect the interaction of that input to be equally simple. And this is never, ever going to be the case. As a designer, when you're crafting an interface, you work on top of the pre-learnings of your user. You take advantage of these mental models or the experiences that they've already created to make that interface easy to use. And when enough people access that interface and operate it with efficiency, we call it intuitive. And we forget that what we forget about is that the mental models, those mental models that you've been playing on, are actually built on layers and layers of other mental models. And taking that for granted, we kind of end up masking it with this label of intuition, which, when what is really going on is actually this really, really complex thing. And there's this book I've been reading recently called The Presentation of Self by Erving Goffman. And the book takes this anthropological perspective to talk about the way in which people present themselves in social situations, which is all really interesting. But for me, the more interesting part is the way in which the author is able to show just how crazy and complex human interaction is, even though it's something that we take for granted in everyday life. And like just describing a plain old greeting for this guy takes like 20 pages of deconstruction. And I mention this because I think we can learn a lot from understanding the complexities that hide behind simple shit. I think when we're designing apps, websites, graphics, whatever, we tend to focus on this holistic experience for a user, which is of course really important, but somewhere along the lines, we forget to criticize the smaller details, which are equally important. And a friend of mine recently criticized why I was doing this talk, and her words were, "That sounds like a fucking stupid topic. What is the fucking point?" And it was really savage, and it hurt my feelings, but it does seem really silly to throw shade at something that is so insignificant in the scheme of things, right? Like for culture counts though, collecting accurate data is really important to our business model, and if these components aren't implemented correctly, it actually has measurable effects on our outputs. Now, you guys are probably sitting there now going, when are you going to show me how you fix your slide issues, and when are you going to like provide some alternatives to try? And I could do that, but I'm not. Because that would take me another half an hour, but also the real message I want to send to you all is not so much how much these things are killing me, it's actually about being observant and challenging your assumptions. We can sit around for ages and spitfire any UI element that we want, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility as the designer to implement the correct system for your problem, and if it's going wrong, it's you who's fucked up, not the UI. So on that note, I've got a bit of advice for anyone who's been through this already, from someone who's been through this already. Do your research. Watch your designs getting used. Don't make assumptions. Give a meetup talk, because it really helps, like boost your feelings. Think big, but make sure you take the time to think small. And fuck slackers. Fuck slackers. Thank you. Oh shit, I turned it off.
Thanks, Tom. That's amazing. I thought you'd swear a lot more. Yeah, give up to Tom again. That was... Get back up here. Switch things. All right, we're going to do a little bit of question time. Does anyone have any questions? All right, Benjamin, right there.
You talked about this happening, you might have already mentioned it, but what sort of timeline did this all occur on?
It was over a year or so. Yeah, it took us a while to figure these things out. We're a big data company, so once you got to build up a lot of stuff, a lot of data, and yeah. But at least we found it, and we're trying to fix it, so that's good.
All right, I got a quick one.
Yep.
What's with the shirt?
Oh. Do you guys like it? It's fucking awesome, hey.
3D.
3D. I'm not going to tell you. There you go.
Actually, never is.
It's my brother's shirt. I got a twin brother, and he does conference talks as well, and so trying to keep something going. Yeah.
Amazing. Anyone else? Ash.
Yeah, you said that you use the ghosting element just to try and solve that sliding problem a little bit. Did that actually have much of an effect?
Yeah, heaps of an effect, yeah. It was a bit of combination of other things. So you had that ghosting element, and then you also had some interface changing around it. So the problem was that people didn't know when they were, people didn't know when their question had been answered. So there was UI there to input stuff, but there was nothing to show them a response to say, hey, yep, this is good, you can go to the next question yet. So all that other interface changing around it, there was a little tick box that kind of like, bing, that really helped. And yeah, we definitely saw improvement in that area. Yes?
So is that what you ended up with then?
That's what we have now, but there's some other stuff in the pipeline that we're working on. Yep. Yeah. Yes?
Have you looked at all how to fix that acquiescence bias?
Yes, quite a lot. And we're working on stuff at the moment. There's different things. Well, some of the things we are trying, we want to collect enough data to make sure we're doing the right thing. And because like any big company, you can't just change something straight away and try different stuff. You have to do A/B testing and make sure other stuff is going through. But there's some ideas, replacing that with buttons, doing like some other crazy inputs, putting a little tooltip above which says where you are on the slider, which maybe will make a little bit more difference. But yeah, we're still working on it. So, yeah.
Sorry, just following on from
Yep.
that. Do you get, I don't know if you've ever used this kind of stuff, but the classic one of like radio buttons? Strongly disagree, neutral.
Yeah, so that's actually the traditional Likert scale.
So do you get the same bias when using that? Because I would imagine it still would be kind of like agree kind of thing.
I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, right.
Callum would know. Yes, he says yes. He says yes. Psychology major says yes. There you go. Anyone else? No.
Are you finding since Tinder's come out, everyone's kind of swiping right more?
So I did have a segment on there which was like, we kind of think young people might, but we didn't get around to ripping that data out, but we could. Maybe young people do swipe more. That would be an interesting one to find out. Yeah. Yeah, this guy.
How have you measured that you've actually made an improvement to the overall bias? Like that's something that's, at least from a non-that major point of view, hard to sort of measure?
Yeah, so for the acquiescence bias, obviously we haven't released anything yet, so that's going to happen later. But for the other one, I think what happened was we actually experienced quite a lot less of those people skipping stuff. So, yeah.
But you said you've done A/B testing, etc., to try and work that out?
No, not yet for the other one, but for the first one, yeah. Yes?
Do you guys do like testing sessions and things with users and stuff, and did it come up in those, or did it just kind of...
We do a lot of like on-site stuff,
Yeah.
so we actually go out to the real events and check people out, and some people, not check people out, check how they use it. But yeah, we see how they're doing it, and that's how we actually, I think it was some of the other guys found that thing when the people were skipping questions. That was their observation that they made, so yeah, it's pretty cool. No one else? Cool.
All right, I got one little wrap-up one.
Yep.
How do you actually find the users to test? Like, do you flag them for beta testing or something? Or trying out new things?
We just contact them. Callum contacts them.
Just randomly.
But also we do real, so actually at the event, the real live thing when people are using it. When people are using the survey for a real thing, like we test it then, and we can, obviously that's all the live data coming back, so we can do analytics on that as well. Yep. Go for it. I love how keen you are.
In these kind of events, are people like it's a cultural event? They're obviously not doing it on their own devices. It's something which gets handed to them and then they
There's-
buy it. So it's like quite.
There's a couple of different ways it works. So either it gets sent to them online via email, or the company posts a link, so it's an online survey, or they actually have interviewers that come up and talk to people about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Sweet.
Awesome. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
Round of applause. So there were like a lot more questions that wouldn't be answered, so we'll put Tom in a little corner. Everyone can kind of put him on a little pedestal, everyone can ask him questions. And have slider banter, I said. So that's a thing. So just going to wrap up for the night, go over a couple of things, a couple of events, announcements, all that stuff. So there's actually like way too much stuff to go. We used to go through kind of a couple of events, but now we're branching out to like all of Australia, and it's just getting crazy. So we've actually built like a universal calendar that we've got 10, 15 collaborators on now, filling it all out. So head over to localhost.events and you should be able to find it. And if anyone wants to help and constantly add data to it and stuff, yeah, we kind of need that. It's way too many events to just keep track of, but we're trying. And hopefully we can eventually do all conferences in the world. Speaking of conferences, what a segue. So these are just a couple coming up in the next month. Yao finished today. I think there were like 10 more people meant to come tonight, but they all went to the speaker dinner instead.
Boo.
So,
Boo.
so we know who they are. They're not blacklisted. Yeah, there's a ton of stuff. Padma is actually talking at UX Australia soon, so if you're over in Melbourne, by any chance, go check that out. Alright, so I'm going to open this up. Does anyone else have anything happening? Any events?
No.
In a couple of weeks.
What is it, Ash?
5:15, 25. Next Agda event in 2 weeks.
Nice. So Carly did the old one to that one.
It's gonna be here.
Sorry, do you want to explain what it is?
We got one speaker from 5 years in the industry, one speaker from 15, one from 25 years in the industry. Use that story and knowledge to work on the see the speakers. And that's going to be held here on the 17th.
Sweet. Thank you, Tom. Sweet. No one else? Don't mind me. All right. Yeah, we also... Where's Helen? There's Helen. All right, do you want to talk about what you're after?
Okay, so we're starting to gear up for the Web Awards this year, and what we would like is to you guys who have entered before or have some suggestions for the website. We can't do a lot of big stuff this year because we don't have the budget.
We've taken it all.
What was that?
We've taken it all.
Yeah. There's only myself and one or two other people that are working actually on the site, so we fit it in around everything else. But if you'd like to give feedback to the Web Awards about anything to do with the website that could be improved, even if it's something that could happen in the future, just let us know. Because we're looking for your input. It's your awards, it's for you guys, we just make sure that it happens. That's the thing. So you can either send a message through the Facebook page, or if you want to send a message to me directly, then just look up Graphite Edge and
Yep.
send me an email. Okay?
We'll also build on that and just tweet it out, and if you want to give any feedback, just
talk to Helen after or talk to us, and yeah, we'll make it happen. Tweet our link to help. So next, if no one else has anything, I don't believe you're. So it's just started to do like a little job board. Currently, we've only got one job board that someone's kind of come to us. So Clue Design, looking for a web designer or a developer. I personally don't know too much about the role, but yeah, if you're interested, then get in contact or talk to us and we'll put you in contact. Any other jobs that anyone has available?
Yes, I got one.
You're used to the mic.
So I was contacted by the WA Museum and they're looking for a web designer to start with them. And because it's in the public service, it's really, really good. So yeah, cake all the time. It's great.
Did you say cake?
Yeah, cake.
Oh, wow. Do you get money?
Yeah.
Or just cake? All right. So on to the announcements. So shit's about to get real. Sticking with the swearing theme. So most of you know that we've got Localhost deployment coming up. So it's a cool little initiative that we're trying to launch. Well, we're not trying, it's happening. It's happening next month. So we've taken a speaker from those 4 cities, so Perth, Brisbane, Sydney, Melbourne. Where's Brett? Brett's our speaker from Perth. And we're taking them on a 4-day tour between those cities. So it's going to be super intense. Probably not going to get too much sleep. Yeah, I mean, it should be pretty exciting. So that's next month, starts in Perth on the 6th. Yes. There's actually 3 tickets left for the Perth event. So I've got a little, there we go. Right now we're winning. We're actually killing everyone else. Yeah, so as I said, 3 tickets as of about an hour ago, I checked. Yeah, Sydney's gone crazy. Brisbane actually had like a massive boost today. So, I mean, we should be sold out, I'm hoping, for all the events soon. So if you want to jump on, I think most of you got the email for if you're a part of the meetup group. So we've got $10 off. So just go to localhost.events and you'll find the deployment page and then just, yeah, sign up. So 3 left. 3. So jump onto that. And yeah, so just going to do like a little wrap up and thanks. So thank you to Tom. First of all, we kind of need speakers to be able to have these events. And I mean, we're booked out for the entire year, so that's pretty crazy. Thank you to our volunteers. I'll go kind of pick them out later. Aussie collaborators, so we need like a lot of help, kind of our websites and our projects and all the shit we're doing. Volunteers for the deployment, all that stuff. Thanks our sponsors, wouldn't be possible without them. And thank all of you for coming. So we need people to actually run this event. So thank you to our volleys. So we've got Ryan. Say hi, Ryan. So there's a brand new photographer. So Ryan's actually coming onto the deployment with us now. So it's super exciting. He's the second kind of roadie that we've got. Well, he's the first. So we're getting a little crew together if anyone wants to actually come on the 4-day tour with us. We can't pay for you, but the offer's there. Got Daniel Browse. He couldn't actually be here today, but we've stolen all his videography gear. Simon Fryer. He's going to help us with some editing, I hope. Yeah. Luke John, who's not here as well, but he's starting to help us with our website. So we've got so much stuff that we kind of need help with all. And Monique, who's also not here, but she does a lot of things. All right. So yeah, as I said before, we all kind of run this out of our spare time. So we've got a lot of projects happening. So if anyone's interested in just helping out with the website or got a new idea, want to help run the event calendar, add to the event calendar, anything like that. A web app for discussion dinners. So it's kind of happening. It's starting to go international, which is a little weird, but also pretty cool. So Una Kravitz is holding one in, she's New York, right? New York. Sound for what? No. Yeah, so she started these kind of discussion dinners as well, but they don't actually call it dinner in the US, so they've called it a different name for some reason. Yeah, supper. Yeah. Don't get that alliteration. Journey map, so we need some help just making sure the UX and everything's good for our websites. And donations. A little elephant over there for some reason. I don't know why we have an elephant, but that's our donation jar. So anything you put in would be well received, and kind of every little dollar helps to make this event much better, or as best as we could. So this is the team. So Padamas is in Brisbane, probably sleeping or passing out right now. DT on the camera, Teagues, and myself, Corey. So yeah, that's pretty much wraps out tonight, or at least the talking part. We've got so much drinks, so much pizza, so yeah, I mean, we don't really get kicked out of this place, so let's just party on. Yeah, I mean, it's only a weeknight. So yeah, thanks everyone for coming, and hope you enjoyed it.